Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unconfirmed, the show that reveals how the marquee names in crypto are reacting to the week's top headlines and gets the inside scoop on what they see on the horizon. I'm your host, Laura Shin, a journalist with over 2 decades of experience. I started covering crypto 5 years ago, and as a senior editor at Forbes, was the first mainstream media reporter to cover cryptocurrency full-time. Unchained and Unconfirmed are now published as videos. If you're not yet subscribed to the Unchained YouTube channel, head to youtube.com/c/Unchained podcast and subscribe today. Blocknative is the easiest way to build and trade with mempool data. Hundreds of the top DeFi projects and traders have integrated Blocknative's API. Learn why at blocknative.com. Crypto.com, the crypto super app that lets you buy, earn, and spend crypto. Earn up to 8.5% per year on your Bitcoin. Download the Crypto.com app now. Today's guest is Mike Winkelmann, aka Beeple. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. Nice to have you. So you're a digital artist and you've worked with Apple, Louis Vuitton, Nike, Justin Bieber, and Katy Perry. And you've been producing one digital artwork a day for over 13 years. How did you get into crypto?
So a bunch of people just sort of started telling me you should check out this NFT stuff. And so really only like 2 months ago, I looked into, the space a bit closer and saw a bunch of names that I recognized, in my sort of like motion design area. And so it's like, oh, there's definitely seems like there's something here. And so I like dove in and I have a computer science degree. I'm not a programmer, but that piece of it really sort of like interested me. So it just, the possibilities I thought were just endless, and that there was just a bunch of things people hadn't like tried yet that I thought sounded really, really fun to like try.
And you ended up having a big digital art sale last weekend that raked in $3.5 million. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just crazy to see. But I also think like it truly is like sort of the start of, people really kind of like collecting this digital art. I think, the physical token paired with the NFT, I think, makes it something people can really understand and sort of like speaks to their inner sort of like collecting voice. And I think it's just a system that, will be, the future of sort of like, collecting artwork.
So tell us more of the details about that sale. What did you offer? How did you offer it? And what happened?
Sure. So the biggest thing, that I think is different from this sale than previous sales is that each of the pieces included a physical token that was, a digital screen that was very closely sort of like tied to the like blockchain. So it wasn't sort of like, a prize that could be separated easily from the NFT. It's something that's very meant to be looked at as one piece. And so I made, beeple-collect.com, which sort of like houses the collection. And then, there was an open edition that was on sale for just 5 minutes. And then, which also included the physical token. And then there was 21 auctions throughout the weekend that sold single edition, sort of pieces to the highest bidder. And so that was sort of like, the components of the drop. So, all weekend, we sold $600,000 worth of the open edition in 5 minutes. And then, the everydays themselves in the auction were going for over $100,000 on average. And then the last piece went for $777,000. So, I think it just shows that there's like a huge appetite for, a tightly sort of connected digital and physical sort of like collectible.
And there were some pieces that were also available for $1 as well. Why did you do that?
So that was sort of like a promotional thing. Yeah, there's these pieces that are available for $1. Those don't include obviously the physical token. And they're in an edition of 100. And even those are going for, if you want to buy them, they sold out absolutely instantly, like less than a second, they like sell out. And so even those, if you want to buy them, they're like $1,700 or $1,800 to like buy just that, like, sort of like video. So I think there is a huge sort of like demand for like collecting digital artwork. And I'm just excited, like, looking forward to first off, get these into people's hands and get them like enjoying, digital art in their sort of like room, just like I am able to kind of like do with these. And then secondly, moving forward, what additional possibilities they are to make these like, cooler and sweeter.
And so what were your expectations going into this sale? Did you expect to raise this kind of money?
I knew it could be big. I will say that. I did not think it would be this big, but I knew it could be big because it was like I was just having them in my like room. It was like these are freaking sweet. Like these are just really like they make the room much cooler. So it was like I think if I can communicate that to people, like people will be as excited as I am. And the people I sort of showed beforehand, like everybody was just like, "Oh my God, like what?" Just like they were very, very excited. So it was like, and again, this is just literally something that like we came up with, like my wife and I, like in like a month. Because again, I've only been in this whole space 2 months. So like this was not something that's like only been thinking about this for the last 2 years. This was like literally like in a month. It was like, oh man, this would be like perfect for the everydays. And that's where I feel lucky that I have like this sort of collection of work that's very digital and very like kind of like meant to be collected almost in hindsight.
Yeah, I'm gonna link to the Instagram video that you did that shows the box and the I guess it's like it reminds me of one of those digital photo display things.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
physical like kind of like video display token thing, but it's kind of like got this nicer like glass feel to it that, makes it feel kind of almost like a little like floating video in your space.
yeah, I have to say it amazes me that you pulled all that together in 2 months because it does look very
I'm
nice
going to
and
be honest,
professional.
I'm actually a little amazed myself too. And that's the weird thing too about like these auctions, which I'm, very new to it. I've been around in the space before, like I did before this, a lot of concert visuals. Like I did the last 2 Super Bowls I was at and like, was part of the like concert visuals and stuff. So it's not like I haven't like done some stuff, but like the auction piece of it and like how like final and immediate it is. Like it was like after the weekend, it was like I immediately had like, $3 million or whatever. It's just very like super weird and like totally in public is also like just something I'm, not used to.
And so prior to selling your art this way, how did you make money from the art that you were creating every day?
So the way any artist, there's no real digital artist that makes money sort of or very few that none that I know of that sort of make money directly from like selling their artwork. It's all like freelance sort of like design work. Like somebody has a design problem and it's like we need graphics for the Super Bowl. So it's like, okay, I'll do that and like, work together with them to sort of like solve that problem. But it's, this is obviously more like art sales where it's sort of I did whatever I want sort of on spec and somebody bought it or whatever. So there hasn't been a path for digital artists to make a living like as a quote unquote artist where they're like selling their own work. And I feel like that's about to change. I feel like this is just the beginning of digital artists being able to sort of like, like a painter or somebody like that who can sell works for, significant amounts of money. And it's hard, but you can make a living like that. I feel like, we're just at the beginning of like sort of looking at that. And I look at like graffiti and like Banksy or Cause with Final Collectibles. And again, I think it's easy to forget that those were once, sort of art forms that people didn't really respect and didn't sort of like, value in more of like a traditional art sense.
And so previously, like when you were dealing with collectors, like how would you make a sale? And how did the payment happen and everything?
So honestly, like it was sort of like anybody else. It was just like a print. I would sell prints and it was not the best way to view my art because it's meant to be, sort of viewed on like a screen, to be honest. And so, selling them at shows and stuff like that, just like any other artist. And it was just kind of, it wasn't the right fit for like my artwork that is so digital. And that's where I think this caught such sort of fire is because it was, this is the best way to view this artwork is you're viewing it on a screen. It's got like all this extra information. It's like, sort of slowly animated. So it feels like, the best way to view this digital, very digital sort of like, artwork.
And when you would sell it at shows, did you get, I'm sure there was some cut taken out of that, and I'm curious to know how that compares to what it was like working with Nifty Gateway, which was the NFT site you worked with.
Yeah, so there was a cut. I mean, to be honest, I had done very little shows. Like, again, because there isn't that much sort of in the art world. Like, there's not a whole lot of outlets for people who are making digital art like this. Like, there's, if you're a painter, obviously, there's tons of galleries that will, oh, you're a painter, that will show your stuff. Whereas if you're a digital artist, they're kind of like, well, why don't you use a computer? And that's not like, well, what are we going to do? They got to set up a projector. They got to do some, this or that. And so, honestly, I had very few shows before this. I threw one show kind of, sort of myself almost in Toronto, not myself, but it was sort of, it wasn't through like a very like established kind of like gallery or whatever. But yeah, we put on like an awesome show, and it had like a really good attendance. But again, it's still sort of, it was not, it wasn't the best way to view the art, because again, it wasn't sort of this like digital thing. And I think that now the pieces are together with the blockchain, with the physical tokens that you can like, view in your house, and with the like, website, that I think all the pieces are sort of there to kind of make it a much stronger sort of like collecting experience.
Okay. This is so interesting talking to you, because it just makes me realize that essentially the art you were putting out every day, essentially what it seems like wasn't really monetized, and that most
Not
of
at
your,
all.
it's
Not at
almost like
all.
it was like free advertisements for yourself, for your commercial
Yes.
work. All right.
Yeah,
So we're
that's
going to,
exactly what it was.
wow, that's yeah, just beyond interesting to me as a creator myself. So in a moment, we're going to discuss how crypto can change business models for artists like you. But first, a quick word from the sponsors who make this show possible. Today's episode is brought to you by Blocknative. Blocknative is the easiest way to build and trade with mempool data. Hundreds of the top DeFi projects and traders have integrated Blocknative's API. They even have Mempool Explorer, the industry's first no-code environment for working with mempool data. Mempool Explorer truly brings blockchain data to life, letting you watch mainnet transactions as they happen. Through the first quarter of 2021, unconfirmed listeners get double the transaction volume on all Blocknative commercial plans, as much as $25,000 in value. Visit blocknative.com/unconfirmed to get started and claim this offer. Back to my conversation with Mike Winkelmann. So something I've been so curious about is, since people can also just get a JPEG of the art, why would they pay a lot of money to own these NFTs?
So, and that was one of the questions I got the most when I was after the first release that I had, which didn't really have that much of like a physical component, is how is this different from Instagram? And why would I buy like, an MP4, a video? And so, those were the two sort of questions I wanted to sort of address with this next drop. And so the first thing is, the video itself that you get for each one of these everydays is different than Instagram. It looks like a collectible, and it looks like different. So you can easily just glance at it and see that it's different, because yeah, you'll always be able to view these things on Instagram. Like, there's just like you can, pull up a picture of the Mona Lisa, but that's very different than owning the Mona Lisa. Like, you can pull up a picture of a bunch of different sort of like famous paintings or this or that, but you don't own those paintings. And if you did own those paintings, then it would feel very different than just looking at it on a thing. So with the physical piece, like, that's where I'm kind of like trying to bring it back a little bit more to the traditional world of art, of like, okay, you don't even need to don't worry about any of the blockchain stuff. You own this physical piece, and it's signed by me, and it's got authentication markers so that you can look at this thing and know that it's like, okay, you were given this thing because you own the NFT. And so you have this, and you can prove you're the only one who has this thing. And you kind of almost really don't even need to worry about the blockchain piece of it. And that's where I think blockchain will be the most interesting and useful moving forward. Like, you look at credit card, sort of technology. Nobody understands how that works. They don't give a crap either. It's like, does it work or not when I sign my thing? And that's, I think, how NFTs are going to be super useful and the ones that will be the most successful are the ones that make things easier for people. Like, I feel like this is a better way, an easier, more transparent way to collect art. And so that's where I think it could have like a really huge sort of like impact on the broader art world.
So the person who, bought that final piece that went for $777,000, 777,
Same,
yeah,
all sevens.
yeah, so he was named Tim King. And I just
Oh
wondered,
boy.
do you know him? Is he like a super fan of yours? Like, do you have some kind of relationship?
So I knew him. I had met him earlier in the week, and I had just sort of like talked to him, and we kind of like DM'd on Twitter, and I like showed him the box, and sort of like I didn't know him super well, but it wasn't like, totally somebody I have no idea. Like, I definitely talked to him. I'm like, DMing him the whole time, and he was kind of like, "Oh, I'm gonna stop at like 300,000," and then it was like, he like did the, big like freaking thing. So it was like, yeah, I knew who it was. Like, it was somebody I was like literally DMing while this was like happening, playing out like in real time. So it's super. And the other guy too, he was who he was DMing. I had like talked to that guy beforehand. So it's like, that's been kind of interesting too, like meeting the different sort of like collectors in the space and sort of like learning about that. And it's just such a interesting relationship, because like we're sort of like, our interests are very much aligned. Like, if their pieces go up in value, like that's great for me and it's great for them. So it's the really like win-win sort of thing. So yeah, it was just, I will definitely never forget that. I can tell you that.
That amazes me. You only just met him, but it sounds like he'd been following your work for a while.
Honestly, I don't think he had, but it just is interesting that a lot of our like sort of like interests and like what we're trying to do and different things we're trying to do like align very well. So it was sort of like, I think we're gonna be friends now. I'll say that. I'll say that.
Yeah, I just realized actually because his Twitter handle says tim.eth. So he
He's
must
been
be an
around.
Ethereum, yes, who
Yeah, he's been
is,
around
yes.
Ethereum for a while, and like, done well for himself. And he's just a very, very smart, just super nice kid. Lives out in LA now, and like just very, very nice. I don't know how much I'm supposed to be like telling him this kid. He's a good guy. He's a
Yeah,
good
we don't have to dox him further.
guy.
So there are, a whole bunch of digital artwork / digital collectible sites right now. And so how did you end up deciding on Nifty Gateway?
The one thing I will say I really like about Nifty is that you can use credit card payments, because again, like I'm trying to make this as accessible as possible for people. So with Super Rare, to be honest, it's like loading an ETH, getting ETH loaded up into a wallet is a lot of work that I don't think people quite recognize that have been in the space. They don't understand, like, you got to connect a Coinbase account, then you got to fund the account, then you got to understand Ethereum, then you got to load a MetaMask Chrome extension, you got to understand how wallets work, you got to transfer. It's a lot. And so, like, if the other option is you just load a credit card in and you're good to go, it's like, well, that's ultimately what it needs to be. It needs to be much, much easier to like bring in a bunch of people. And that's what I'm really trying to do is like, okay, the space has been on fire, but there's a lot of artists coming in. We need a bunch more collectors coming in to sort of like, keep the party going here. So that's where what I was really trying to do with this sort of like, drop.
So the amount of money that you took in 48 hours is actually the same amount that was taken in by all the artists on Super Rare in 11 months. So do you think that this auction went so well for you because you already have an established audience? Like, you have 1.7 million followers on Instagram, or do you think that NFTs and auctions are a promising way for lesser known artists to sell their work?
I think it went so well because I was offering something different and I was solving a problem. I think like since then they just had like, a little Yachty coin on Nifty. And I think it's cool. And I think there's some, sort of like market for that type of stuff. But I think like that guy's way more popular than me, and his coin sold for like 16,000. So I don't think it's just the popularity. I think I was doing something new and different that people were like, oh, that's actually a sweet thing versus just like, he's a popular guy. I honestly think it was mostly just because I was like offering this physical token and people could see like, oh yeah, that's actually a way sort of like better product. And especially even with the open edition for $1,000, you got the physical token too, that I think that was why it was so successful versus like me being popular. That helped, but like I think it was mostly just the fact that it was like, oh, this is actually, you know, a product that seems new and different, is like pushing the space forward more.
So you kind of talked about this a little bit, but I just wondered exactly how you thought business models would change for digital artists going forward. And I also wondered whether or not that you thought this model could apply to other kinds of creatives, such as writers, musicians, actors who, well, maybe actors, it's a little bit difficult, but writers they can obviously make ebooks or, whatever, and musicians can make MP3s. So do you think that this is something that can only apply for visual artists, or do you think other types of artists can also take advantage?
I think it will depend on if adding an NFT to that thing adds more value. If it doesn't, then I don't know that it will be that popular. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. Again, I'm so new to this space. I hate to make, oh, this is what's going to happen. I don't know. Like I really like, I don't want to oversell my sort of like, whatever theories here too much. But I feel like the things that are not like, I mean, you can add an NFT to anything. Here we go. Here's this, chapstick. Oh, I want to get that NFT of this. Like, but what does that do? That doesn't make it better. So I honestly think the projects where adding an NFT adds value, I think those are going to be the most successful, where it's sort of like, not really solving a problem, which I think, to be honest, with some of traditional art, it's sort of like, if there's a painting or whatever, and you have an NFT, well, it proves I have the painting. It's like, but the painting proves you have the painting. You have the painting. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, what, I am not sure what problem it's solving. Like, the painting itself proves you have the painting. Why would you need an NFT on top of that? You know what I mean? So I think there's going to be the things where it doesn't actually provide that much new value. I think those, I'm not sure they'll last like a super long time. I think it will be the things where it's sort of like, oh, this NFT makes this ownership experience better or more valuable or easier or whatever, that I think those will be the ones that will be, you'll see much more success. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And any last hints you want to give us on what you might do with crypto in the future?
Oh, I can tell you, we're just getting started. We got a lot planned. Now you got the whole fam activated, and the fam we're hungry.
All right, great. Well, I look forward to seeing what you do next. Thank you so much for coming on Unconfirmed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Don't forget, next up is the weekly news recap. Stick around for This Week in Crypto after this short break. Crypto.com, the crypto super app that lets you buy, earn, and spend crypto, all in one place. Earn up to 8.5% per year on your BTC. Download the Crypto.com app now to see the interest rates you could be earning on BTC and more than 20 other coins. Once in the app, you can apply for the Crypto.com Metal Card, which pays you up to 8% cash back instantly. Reserve yours now in the Crypto.com app. Thanks for tuning in to this week's news recap. First headline, Bitcoin price breaks new records. Bitcoin has spent the week reaching new all-time highs, breaking through $20,000 and $21,000 on Wednesday, and then breaking through $22,000 and $23,000 on Thursday. Bitcoin options daily trading also surpassed $1 billion for the first time on Thursday. As the price of Bitcoin surges, Guggenheim Investments Global Chief Investment Officer Scott Minerd said on Bloomberg TV that he believes the fair value of the cryptocurrency is far from being achieved, pointing to, quote, rampant money printing and Bitcoin's scarcity as reasons to think the price could eventually reach $400,000. Meanwhile, UK-based Ruffer Investment confirmed that it had accumulated $744 million in Bitcoin in what it is calling a hedge against, quote, some of the risks that we see in a fragile monetary system and distorted financial markets. Also, a U.S. hedge fund that specializes in volatility bets has quietly purchased more than $600 million in cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, with plans to bring its holdings of Bitcoin and Ethereum to $1 billion by 2021. Eric Peters, CEO of One River Asset Management, foresees a generational allocation to crypto assets, saying, quote, COVID-19 provided the ultimate catalyst for that transition. This is the most interesting macro trade I've seen in my career. On Wednesday, on-chain Bitcoin analyst Willy Woo tweeted that based on his charts, $100,000 for the Bitcoin price is, quote, a ridiculously low target at the current trajectory. Woo said he views $55,000 Bitcoin as the next landmark, which would turn the cryptocurrency into a $1 trillion macro asset. Next headline, Coinbase takes first step toward IPO. After reports this summer that it planned to go public, Coinbase filed a draft Form S-1 to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the first step to having an initial public offering. If it's approved, Coinbase will become the first crypto company to go public, a huge milestone for the industry. This week, the company also welcomed a new board member, Kelly Kramer, who was previously Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at Cisco. She will chair the Audit and Compliance Committee. Also, Mark Andreessen, co-founder and general partner at Andreessen Horowitz, will take a more active role on the Coinbase board, transitioning from board member to board director. Next headline, Ethereum touches new yearly high as CME Group announces futures. CME Group plans to list Ethereum futures in February, pending regulatory approval. CME's announcement comes as Ethereum reaches its highest price since May of 2018, briefly hitting $672 on Thursday. CME, which has previously said it was focusing solely on Bitcoin futures, seems to have had a change of heart due to the growth of its futures and options market. Next headline, Paxos pulls in $142 million to expand services. The day after Bitcoin surpassed $20,000, Paxos announced a $142 million Series C investment, led by Declaration Partners, an investment advisor to the family office of billionaire David Rubenstein of the Carlyle Group. Other prominent investors include PayPal Ventures. With a total of $240 million in venture funding, Paxos is now one of the highest funded firms in crypto, though the current valuation was not disclosed. The company plans to use the investment to develop new products for institutional clients and entice Wall Street to use its settlement and crypto products. Next headline, President Trump is considering clemency for Ross Ulbricht. The Daily Beast reports President Trump is considering giving clemency to Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht, who is serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for computer fraud, money laundering, and drug charges tied to his role as founder and administrator of the first online drug market. Sources tell the Daily Beast that the president has, quote, privately expressed some sympathy for Ulbricht's situation, and some prominent Republican Party figures have said that Ulbricht's sentencing was unjust. Next headline, Can crypto mining in the U.S. take off? A Fortune story by Jeff Roberts reports that U.S. companies are attempting to challenge China's dominance in cryptocurrency mining. For Bitcoin, 65% of the hash rate comes from China, while the U.S. is in second place at 7%. The startup Core Scientific raised $23 million this week for mining operations in Georgia, North Carolina, and Kentucky. Its investor, digital currency group subsidiary Foundry, plans to spend $100 million on mining ventures. Meanwhile, Crusoe Energy, Great American Mining, and Upstream Data are using energy waste from oil and gas activities to run crypto miners. However, these startups have to counter bad impressions left by a previous wave of Bitcoin miners who descended on small communities with cheap energy and promising jobs, only to pack up without a trace. Next headline, Nexus Mutual CEO hacked for $8 million. $8 million in NXM tokens were stolen from the personal wallet of Hugh Karp, CEO of DeFi insurer Nexus Mutual. The attacker is a Nexus Mutual member, but the project tweeted that the mutual itself is not impacted. The pool of funds and all systems are safe. The attacker gained remote access to Karp's computer, then tricked Karp into signing a transaction that transferred funds to the attacker's address. The hacker has since been attempting to convert the funds into Bitcoin and has cashed out at least half the stolen funds. Time for fun bits. A $200,000 Bitcoin sushi dinner. In 2013, Kashmir Hill, then a reporter for Forbes, tried living on Bitcoin for 1 week as an experiment. Her week of transacting only in Bitcoin proved difficult. When she decided to finish off with a sushi blowout at San Francisco restaurant Sake Zone, one of the few eateries accepting Bitcoin, her online invitation to a few enthusiasts turned into dozens of attendees. Still, Sake Zone owner Young Chen graciously accepted the $1,000 payment in 10 BTC. Now, 8 years later, for the New York Times, where she is now a reporter, Kashmir checked back in with Young, who said, quote, "I sold some. I feel so bad. Now I just keep it. I just put it there like stock and wait. The Bitcoin has become one of the major saving assets in my portfolio. It's a lot. It's close to like $500,000 in my account." Next headline, quizzes. For some reason, this was the week of crypto quizzes, with the first one being kicked off by Larry Cermak, the director of research at The Block, who was looking for an intern. Along the way, he found a lot of already highly accomplished people in the space who would make fine interns. And this also inspired Nick Carter of Castle Island Ventures to make his own quiz, which is a Bitcoin-themed one. And then finally, Frank Chaparro of The Block also created a quiz for crypto and business journalists. I have to confess, Frank's is the only one I've taken so far. I've had a very, very busy few weeks, but I was happy to score at the 90th percentile. Enjoy testing your crypto knowledge. Thanks for tuning in. To learn more about Beeple, or Mike Winkelmann, Nifty Gateway, and digital art, be sure to check out the links in the show notes of this episode. Don't forget, we are now on YouTube. Subscribe to the Unchained Podcast YouTube channel today. Unconfirmed is produced by me, Laura Shin, with help from Anthony Yoon, Daniel Ness, Bossy Baker, Shashank, Josh Durham, and the team at CLK Transcription. Thanks for listening.